Good from
Yes.
the lecture? Okay, I will just keep going. Okay. So I just wanted to say here that I'm a digital nomad because of the way I designed my life, and the thing is, the advantage of this is that I'm able to bring about different kind of nuggets of wisdom to different spaces. So, for example, when I am at New York Tech, I'm able to give them what's going on in other places, and then when I'm in Asia, especially right now, since I'm dealing with my current role, is that I'm able to bring about things that are happening in the West already and the mishaps that are happening in the West. So that's really the bulk that I was trying to say. Okay. And thank you for the lady who spoke. Thank you so much. If you didn't, I would have been going. All right. So just before I enter the slide, can you guys let me know briefly what are your career backgrounds? So I won't use a lot of technical jargon today.
So for me, I can get started. I mean, I'm just
Yes.
into an Android development. I'm
Okay.
like focused on that, and my next thing is like I'm trying to like build an app using
Okay.
trying to find a vertical space in AI.
All right. Okay. So shall I say you're a founder right now?
I'm trying to be using.
Okay. Lovely. Awesome. So, and which market are you looking at?
So I'm exploring different kind of markets. Like first, I started looking into fitness, and then
Yes.
home assistance, like like home guide AI kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. All right. And your background before becoming a founder is, please?
I'm an Android developer, software engineer.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So you are the tech person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Perfect. And your name, please. I don't see your names. What's your name, please?
Sangram Banker.
Okay, Singram. Okay, I will remember you by audio. Thank you. And I think there's a lady there, and there's also Ben, and there is Ragu, right? I hope I remember the names for today.
Yeah,
Oh,
hi Kat.
hi.
Thank you for fixing the audio issue.
Thank
Um,
you so much. Yes.
yes, so my background is I've been a product manager at
Okay.
different health tech companies, and now I'm looking at potentially starting my own company in the skin disease plus like AI space.
Okay. Okay. So detection of anomalies in the skin.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And you're a product manager within healthcare. So you've dealt with the healthcare regulations and all the drama, right? Shall I say that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So, two founding members and Ben, and where you guys are
Yeah,
based by just a clear, Singram, where are you based again?
I am from San Francisco area.
Okay, perfect. San Francisco. And the lady, please, your name.
It's
Apologies.
Roshali. I'm also
Yes.
based in San Francisco.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And Ben, please. I know you're from Porto. I just read your email. Is Ben there? I can't tell.
He just sent a message saying he's having difficulties with his microphone.
Oh, okay. All right. So I will read that later, okay, Ben? Because as you can see, I cannot read your chats for the meantime. All right. So, um, I said earlier before my tech issue thing that one of the things that I do complimentary part of this lecture series of Tech Doctor is to make sure that I connect the founding members with potential VCs or angel investors because this is a quarterly thing, by the way. So this is not the last time you're gonna have a call invite. I will keep it open. I'll let Anna know that you guys are part of this. So the thing is, when I have founding members and I do have angel investors, I do try every quarter to mix and match. So that's why I want to know where you guys at. So if you are ready to demo or something, just let me know on a separate email, and then I will just connect you to the right people that may be interested. Okay, okay, you guys. This is just a token of appreciation. So since we have tech people and we have product managers, and hopefully I would Ben will let us know later what's his background. Let's first kind of flesh out
that
the
you
landscape.
forgot about me.
Where are you? Who are you? I'm sorry. Please do so.
No
Please
worries.
chime in.
My name is No, my name is Raghu. I'm actually
Yes.
Indian living in Netherlands.
Okay,
And
perfect. See, all over the world. Yeah.
I'm focusing on building an application with for autoimmune condition, psoriasis.
Okay, arthritis. Yeah, that's a big market. Yes. And your
Yeah,
background, please?
my background is I'm not a technical, but I have psoriasis, and I
Oh,
try to
see, I
create a
see.
system for myself to track
Yes.
the foods I'm eating and my stress, my sleep levels, and also the symptoms. It's like there is no application which tracks everything as a whole and provides you some kind of
Mm-hmm.
like advice from AI, something like that. So that's why I want to create like
Okay.
a application which tracks your food, sleep, stress, and symptoms and gives you a bit more insights. Initially, it's focused on
Yes.
autoimmune psoriasis. Then you can expand to other psoriasis, other autoimmune. Then it can even become a general health assistance for anybody.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. You enter as a vertical, but then your angle is to patient monitor, right? You're monitoring the day-to-day kind of, physiology of the person. And that is basically the
Yeah,
the
exactly.
hotbed for any form of diseases. Yes. Okay. Awesome. This is a
Yeah,
great,
exactly.
landscape. If you notice, we got detection of anomalies in the skin. We got kind of a remote patient monitoring, right? And also Sangram is
And
dealing with
just one
AI.
idea I want to
Oh,
run by you. I'm sorry to just one
yes,
idea I want to
please.
run by
Go
you,
ahead.
which is I want to like create like a watch, more like a watch for them to log instead of phone, because people hate logging in their phone
Mm,
because it's every time you need
yeah,
to take
wearable.
log something. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it would be easy if there's like a smartwatch. You just say, "Hey Nora, I just ate my usual breakfast," or "Hey Nora, I feel sick in my tummy,"
Yeah.
something like that.
So it's like a companion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a more like a
And
companion.
yeah, yeah. This is from a separate, kind of module, but the best way to actually design an experience is to know it's to experience it yourself, you see? So you are the first person who can tell what works and what doesn't. So this is a cliche because sometimes designers will say, "Oh no, if you design it for yourself, then it's just the target audience is one." I would beg to differ. If it is something that you're dealing with every day, and it's, for example, a chronic illness, but you know how it feels like, you know how the burden of it, you know the nuance of it, then you are the best person to translate that experience for millions of other people. So that is a good approach, by the way, Raghu. Kudos.
Thank you.
Welcome. So that is an angle of patient-centered design, right? This is one of the nuggets that a lot of debates are happening, but it's for different module. If you guys want to know more about that one, I believe Anna can send you some of my intellectual goodies. If you notice, I'm pretty generous in this thing because I have a bigger mission. I want us all to make our healthcare better. I think we can do it now with all the technologies, with all the enablement that we're having. So why not just share and uplift the healthcare system? Because I think we can tell from different aspects of the world, right? You guys are from different places, and right now I'm entirely in a different place. And the people who are putting some scribes in there, they're also from different time zones, and we can all agree that healthcare is not perfect, is not immaculate, and sometimes it's even substandard in some areas. So the more the merrier, the better the design, the better the outcome. So we have to, kind of as educators, we have to give more rather. So the healthcare landscape is evolving, whether the healthcare people wants to accept it or not. When I say healthcare people, are the people who are actually administering health, the people who are actually deciding within the healthcare system. The evolution has been brute force in a sense. Um, Before there was a lot of talks. 10 years ago, I have almost 15 years in this industry. So imagine that 10 years ago when I was a young bloke, it's like there was a lot of resistance for something that is beyond the hospital walls. And there was a lot of resistance for anything that is digitized. There was a lot of resistance when something is, kind of co-deciding with the main key decision maker. So imagine the resistance within this highly regulated industry. And for people who actually are, can innovate, they feel like there is a wall that they cannot break into. And it's true, it was a huge wall. It's either you conform to how the pacing is, or you opt out and you go to another industry where you can disrupt faster. So if you notice, there was a lot of disruptions in a lot of markets outside healthcare, and healthcare was there kind of, just chilling in there with a lot of its nuances, complexities, sometimes redundancies and waste. And when I say these, I really mean the word waste. There are a lot of redundancy and waste in different healthcare systems around the world, okay? And with their own gravity and all severity. So now that we have acknowledged this, everything else was getting, digitized, getting some form of point of care, point of sales is different, the transactions are different. And then healthcare, once you enter the healthcare system or the journey, it just goes back to the 20th century, or the 1900s. You feel like, oh, it's pretty outdated, right? But then now the evolution is a reality because the AI wave cannot be stopped. Reason being is because it's a cognitive technology, and healthcare is mainly about cognition, about extreme cognition. You need a very smart doctor, you need a smart and knowledgeable surgeon and dexterous surgeon. You need a smart system. It's really about intelligence. You cannot be an administrator of health if you are not some form of intelligent, right? That's a no-brainer. But if you think about it, that we're having a cognitive tool, cognitive technology that's gulping up the world, then by default, healthcare has no choice but to yield. And that's what's happening as of the moment. So when you sit down in the board meetings, like how I do in this past quarter, which is very, very heated, it's because there's fear now. And I want to talk about this here, is that there's a lot of fear. The fear of being replaced, the fear of being automated, the fear of the concept of hospital will start to diminish, the fear of patients will have different expectations or higher expectations or more personalized expectations. You see, all of these things are fear. And someone who comes from innovation space, right, from the healthcare innovation space, and that's what we advocate. When you sit down in the real world, which is the field work, you sit down with physicians, you sit down with, healthcare administrators, and you realize that they are on the first level of the grieving period, which is like denial is the river of Egypt. So they're denying, or they are grieving, in a sense, they're angry, or they're afraid. And these are the three phases of any evolution or any cycle. Some people are ignoring the fact that everything is becoming, AI enabled in a sense, which is it's good for the patient because they can have a shorter time period to actually receive care. But for a doctor who has been practicing for 40 years a certain manner, I don't think it will be a good thing to welcome, right? So that is really the reality now. As a founder member, as a founding team, you start to think like, where do I sit in this? Because you would like to, put your heart and soul into something, but then the reality of the three phases of grieving period, as I said, the denial, the anger, and anger, basically resistance, and in the fear of whatever you're creating, will put your invention or innovation in the shelf life for the next 5 years, and that is not far from reality. So where are we in this, right? And that's a food for thought for you all. So when you think about that, you also have to look at the numbers. Numbers will tell you where the value is. So in a global sense, when we talk about digital health, and when I say digital health, I'm encompassing everything else, right? Everything that is AI enabled, that is wearables, apps, websites, web apps, think about everything that is digitized. So when you think about it from a bigger market, in a sense, check this out. It's a $586.59 billion market size by 2030, and that's really not far away. That's 5 years only. So if that's the number by then, so imagine the rate of growth by now, the CAGR, right? The rate of growth. So the numbers will tell you where the yielding will happen. This is the future. The future is gonna be a smart one, but then to go into that, there are thousands upon thousands of resistance from key stakeholders. And that is a norm. That is something you have to expect as a founder member. You might even find that consumer health or health consumers, the ones that you are, you will acquire via alternative means. So these people who are going to use your technologies, perhaps they found you online, they found you via social media, or they just, literally downloaded your app from the App Store without even knowing who you are. I'm talking about pure walk-in health consumers. You might find that to be more compassionate than actually, sorry, than actually dealing with stakeholders. Oh my God. Apologies. Dealing with stakeholders who are actually dealing who are key decision makers in key hospitals, key clinics, key chain of government, verticals of government, yada yada. So that is really important to remember, that as a strategy, really, I'm talking from an innovator point of view now. As a strategy, look into the health consumer space, because they will be your advocates. Because at the end of the day, all of the key decision makers will listen to the public. They will listen to the patients. If the patients do not want a certain manner of administrative health, or how it's the healthcare is being delivered, then you are having a high chance of actually molding and yielding and shifting the paradigm within your specific territory or within your specific space, in terms of, if it's a disease-based kind of invention or innovation. So that is really a strategy from the ground. I'm giving you something that I deal with face to face, and I hear it, and I hope that this will be very useful in the near future with your products. All right, so let's also look where the money goes, because especially in the US market, it's really important to follow the trend, in a sense, so that you either disrupt the trend, or you swerve and serve the trend. The swerving part, like you try to be a byproduct of the trend, or you serve it. You actually, target these people and you go like, hey, I have something that you might be interested in, because apparently by your investment trend, you tend to invest on XYZ. So that is one option. Or also you can go disrupt the whole thing altogether. And by default, they will look into you, like how, for example, OpenAI did it. They disrupt a lot of things. By default, you're going to look into them, because they have changed a fundamental thing within the industry. Okay, so the US healthcare VC, which is the most mature, the most active, if you look at it from different parts of the world, they are pouring in $23 billion in 2024 last year from 20. So you got a $3 billion increase. So imagine in 2025 what it's gonna be, right? Especially now that we're entering a more of a diversification of how AI is. That's very important to talk about the AI dominance, because now everything is anchored to it, because it is really a powerful tool, and perhaps our last tool, actually. So last invention. It could also be a last invention. So there is a $3 billion increase from 20 billion to 23. So you can just extrapolate this year, right? That is very important. And you have to also look into Rock Health. Rock Health alone invested $10.1 billion. And it's not on mature or mid-tier or Series A. I hope I'm making sense to you guys. If it's too VC language, just let me know, okay? So they do invest on products, or should I say companies or product companies, that are on the early stage, which means that they are just ripe enough as an idea. Perhaps they have an MVP, minimum viable product. They can demonstrate something, and the potential for it to scale is still on the green, right? They still want to have a dent to it. That's the whole point. Because if you invest on something that is midway, then it's already established in a sense. Like, it's already having a good market share. I'm sorry, I have asthma, so I also have chronic illness. That's something that when it attacks, it attacks. But that's something very important to look into Rock Health. So if you have a demonstration or MVP, I do suggest to contact Rock Health. You never know, they may actually respond, especially if it's something that is in the blue ocean, something in the green, which means that it's still potential for scalability is still on the works, and it demonstrated a form of unfair advantage. So you have to go back to your own lab and think about what will attract such high risk venture capital. Yes. Okay, it's just an echo. All right. So also, we have to look into the AI dominance. So 30% of 2024 healthcare VCs went to AI startups, pure AI startups. That is really, really important. So if you blend AI and healthcare, then you're having a higher chance, right? Because you're literally taking two verticals and blending it. So as a founder, especially that today we have a lot of founders, as a founder, you have to really think about how am I going to position myself in a sense that I am holding two pillars. I'm speaking about AI, that I have something, tangible, powerful, that will shift something. And then I'm also having a good root on the healthcare aspect, whether that is a chronic illness, whether that is a non-communicable disease, NCDs, whether that is pure consumer health, like you want something that's outside any clinical care, something like that. If you solidify that, then perhaps you have a higher chance to actually have a response, due diligence, and then get funded. Okay, so I'm just letting you know about this because there's a lot of frantic as of the moment. As I told you, there's a lot of movement going on, and a lot of clinics and hospitals are shifting as we speak right now. The other factors that you have to look into is the economic conditions, the interest rates right now. I think 18 months ago, the VCs were having a bit of a crisis. Like they're not really venturing a lot, and the reason being is there's also it's very economics based. I cannot speak something that I do not know much, but really they were slowing down in a sense. But then now they're revving up. Okay, they're revving up because they realize that the timing is ripe. It's no more resistance in a sense. A lot of hospitals, for example, a lot of systems, clinical systems, they're accepting that there is no other way but to integrate digital health into the main clinical workflow, main clinical model of the hospitals. Okay, the acceptance of the reality has been setting in as of the moment. All right. And also, what are the focus areas? Like if you're going to package your product, think about efficiency. Is it faster? Is it more optimized? Is it making the life of the person easier? Is it slower waiting times? Are you making the provider's time more, faster transaction because you don't want them to keep on wasting time? Remember, I said redundancy and waste is very prominent in the healthcare industry and the healthcare all over the world, actually. Even NHS, you'll figure out that they have a lot of waste and a lot of redundancy and a lot of burnout because they have shortage of labor. Yeah. So innovative treatments, something that we have never seen before, that actually will be useful for the long run for the population, and also tech-driven patient care. So something that is beyond what we know, beyond the actual classical model of physician-patient relationship. Is there something that we can actually automate, optimize, outsource? You see, all these words will be candy to the ears of VCs. All is well. I'm going to go to the next part. So let's have a recap from 2023, 2024 onwards, because 1 year is not enough in healthcare. It's a different lifespan. This world is slower usually, but then there will be an uptick really, really, really soon. There will be some movements that will be shocking. Just expect them in the 2025, 2026 time. But the brewing has been happening, okay? The brewing has been happening since COVID. And 2022, 2023 was like the time where there's a lot of like, no, we don't need it, yada, yada. But then it just kept on going up with acceptance. So now we're talking about an AI moved to practical use. So AI was basically in the healthcare. Okay, I'm not talking about AI in everything because AI is pretty mature in other places, really. And even if you look at, for example, manufacturing, when you say AI, it's not just machine learning. AI is basically expert systems, intelligent systems, and manufacturing world had intelligent systems since the dawn of time, since the 70s and 80s. So it's not really that, for example, groundbreaking in a sense when you say AI in the manufacturing world, for example. But then when we're talking about healthcare, it does have a groundbreaking element because we have moved outside the R&D, which we have been used to in the academic world when we talk about different intelligent systems for healthcare, and we've been researching alongside that. And now it's entering the implementation. So So it's entering the clinical workflow. That's what it means. That's why it's very, very important to know that this trend is important, that it's not just a talk in the clouds or a talk in the academia or in the labs. Now it's actually in the groundwork, being present with the physicians, whether they're seasoned physicians or they're upcoming physicians. If you also notice another trend is that the new physicians, they expect AI to be around, which is a groundbreaking thing because that's not the norm. Now imagine the new generation of physicians who are out, they're actually expecting smart companions within their workflow. They're like, why am I doing this manually? This should be like, outsourced or delegated to my AI companion. So that is a very important thing. And that is also a very important pressure because the seasoned ones cannot keep things the way it was running because the new physicians cannot function in the old world. Okay, so practical use in what sense? We're talking about enhancing the imaging part, whether that is detection of anomalies, for example, like Rochelle was talking about. And then aside from detection, you're selecting, you're literally telling me that this is the one, and then you're recommending, you are actually telling me what could be the potential anomaly. For example, if it's a very random mole, but it seems to be a little bit, tumor-like, cancerous-like, whether it's benign or malignant. It's a different type of selection and decision-making, but at least it detected it and kind of, recommended that this should be checked out. That's a recommendation. So we got selection systems, detection systems, recommendation systems, and there's also decision-making systems, which is the next level that is still having a higher resistance because the physicians are like, if the AI will start to decide for us, then what are we doing here? And that is a very important clause, by the way. It's a very important argument because if we keep going, then it's a pure automation. So the mere idea of having a clinic will start to fade away. Like, we don't really need to go anywhere. Why do we need to go? Because it literally, I can do this at home, you see? So that is something very radical, but it's on the table. This question I heard it in real life, okay? I did not answer it because if I answer, it's either gonna split the team, split the board or not. You see, it's a very delicate question, but it's a food for thought nevertheless. The other one is enabling predictive analytics. You're starting to predict the potential, activation of certain diseases, whether that is from a genetic point of view or genomics point of view, also from the actual lifestyle. If you are an alcoholic, there's a higher chance that your liver is really taking a hit. If you are an avid smoker, there's a higher chance of you having, lung cancer, for example, or throat cancer. So these are the things that are can be analyzed in a sense because of the vast amount of data that's going to be, accumulated from different vendors, different clinical, institutions. The predictive analytics is to make sure that we are preventing the inevitable by shifting our lifestyle or helping the genetics will not be activated or some form of preventive medicine way before the chronic illness is activated or starts to appear, right? So for example, in diabetes is a very interesting, chronic illness because it does show signs early on. It's when you are pre-diabetic, it starts to show. There are some symptoms that are there. And if you actually take hold of your weight, take hold of your food intake early on, you might reverse prediabetes. You might even reverse the whole thing because it's a lifestyle change outside in, not only inside out, right? So that's an example. AI can help in that when we have a wealth of data of different patient pools and we can find patterns and then figure out like, oh, if I actually omit this for this type of genetics, for this type of race, for this type of age group, this type of geography, then perhaps there's a high chance that I will reverse the whole chronic illness from the get-go. So that is a dream, right? That is under preventive medicine. The other one is automating tasks. The hospital system is full of redundancies, full of waste, and full of checkpoints that are unnecessary. So automating those tasks early on means that delivery of care is optimized, faster, and cleaner in a sense, like you go in and out in a clean manner. And integrating a smart cognitive technology will help in sorting that out. You see the word sorting? That is one of the algorithms that are really, really needed, is to sort which priority task to be done and when. And that's something that AI can do beautifully if it is trained properly. So there's also significant focus on privacy, bias, and regulatory frameworks. And when we say bias, it's not just, the human error bias, it's also algorithmic bias. And this is why it is really needed that healthcare innovators within the AI space have like triple check, double check, quadruple check the algorithms and models that are being pushed to the market, that are being used by vendors, to make sure that there are no fundamental error within the flow, within the logic of the algorithm. Okay, so that is a whole work. That's a work with it's a vertical that needs unidimensional expertise in a way. Privacy, yes. For example, in the EU world, privacy is a big deal. It's tied to citizenry. There's a lot of AI Act, for example. There is EU MDR regulations from the EU Commission, and they're really pushing for privacy. But here is a food for thought for you all, because you guys are in the founding teams, right? Privacy means concealment of information between the relationship between the vendor, the provider, and the patient, right? That's what privacy is all about. Now, how are you going to innovate if you do not have a good feedback loop? So that is the chicken and egg problem for founding teams. How are we going to refine our product if a whole continent, a whole EU Commission, EU citizens, EU patients, right? EU market, for example, is not allowing us to have an idea of what works and what doesn't? So that is really, is it shooting ourselves in the foot? Is it protecting the ideal persona of a citizen, or are we stunting the growth altogether? And that is a food for thought, because that is exactly what's happening as an argument within the healthcare industry. It's like they're falling behind because of this, EU Commission AI Act of privacy and also citizenry. So that's a food for thought. And if you're thinking of entering the EU market, please look into this and follow where the regulatory frameworks are going in that sense. But as I said, innovation needs active feedback loops. You want the provider, you want the patient to tell you if the product works or not in different touch points. That being closed means that you're on the blind, you're on the gray, you're on the, you're outside looking into your product with no sense of control, which means you may not even know if you have a bias somewhere, right? So that is very important to think about. Please, don't take it lightly, take it heavily, okay? All right. Another one is telehealth advanced. So if we had telemedicine as a big deal of, video call between A and B, physician and patient relationship, now we're looking at hybrid care. And that is just a conversation I had last week, which is, what is hybrid care? Hybrid care means that I may be in a tertiary hospital. I could be a surgeon, for example, as you can see the picture. You could be a surgeon, right? But you're able to conduct a surgery in a rural area, remote area that you may not have an access to, or may not even ever travel the place, and you may never, ever meet the patient that you have conducted that surgery on. You see how powerful that is? You could be in this town taking care of that patient in another town, or even in another village, if we can reach that level of granularity, that specificity, right? So hybrid care is not only the future, it's actually here, because the scalability of complex, mid-tier, complex surgeries is possible now. So you don't need to fly them over. You don't need to bring them over to the main hospital, because whether we like it or not, there's some things that cannot leave the hospital, such as surgeries and treatments that are really requiring big machines, such as cancer therapies, right? So, or for example, hemodialysis. You cannot just, have it anywhere. You really need a center for it. So things that need center, because it's something that you need to be done within four walls in a controlled manner, Now we're having hybrid care. You can have a smaller center somewhere, a municipal one, a provincial one, a village-based, something like that. And then the main surgeon that is, dealing with complex surgeries can actually conduct his surgery in precision, in a precise manner. And that is a beautiful way of saying it's a precision medicine, precision, surgery. So robots can do this. And robots with smart AI-enabled softwares can do that, right? Systems. So increased RPM, what do we mean? There's an increase of remote patient monitoring. That's exactly what outpatient home care kind of situation will be. It's like I am all over the world, but my wearable, my apps, my smart garments are taking vital information, biodata, physiological data that is being mapped so that my primary care physician or my tethered clinician can actually figure out if I'm doing okay, if I'm, improving or not. So that is really powerful. The other one is service diversification. It's not going to stay the way. Right now, there's a lot of talks of holistic medicine because there is a realization that the classical way of administering care, the classical way of just, in-out outpatient service, like if you are sick, then come to us, it's not making sense anymore because people are wearing smartwatches. They can start having a wealth of information they can bring with them along with, and they can start working on being in a preventive health intervention, right? So that is diversification. So think outside the box. It's not only about you coming in, you're sick, then I treat you, which is the classical way of thinking. No, it's about we think that you might get sick because of the prevalence of X, Y, and Z. We suggest that you come over to our wellness program or wellness center just to check you and give you a good recommendation so that you prevent this chronic illness altogether. Something like that, imagine. So tackling digital access disparities. This is a big one and it's different in different places in the world. So for example, in the global south, digital access disparities can literally mean the person does not have an app and does not have a phone, and does not have internet connectivity. We can literally speak about that. Like that person doesn't have a phone. So you cannot have digital health without a phone. And it's not like you're gonna buy phones for millions of people, right? So that is one thing. The other one, digital access disparities, for example, for the West, is the mere fact that, oh, you're out of network. When I say by out of network, you cannot really connect to the nearest clinic or nearest hospital because your insurance is out of network. So what now? I have to drive to this XYZ and miles because I'm in network. So that is a digital access disparity. Why? Because you can literally start having an RPM, account with the nearest hospital. But because of insurance, this is very US based, by the way. Because of insurance, you don't even have the physical or the digital access to that specific, clinical care center. And that is a very interesting and very complex module to discuss because there's so many things, moving parts in there. All right, so expansion of the services, for example, is mental health counseling. It's beyond the space that you're at. So for example, this is one statistics I just remembered. If you look into the area of Oklahoma, New Mexico, if you guys remember those 4 states. So Oklahoma, New Mexico, a little bit of Texas on the north, something like that. If you look at that area, you realize that they have a mental health desert, which means that they have only like one psychologist per, I don't know, plus thousands of people, thousands of patients. That is really, really scary. So imagine and they have to drive at least like 50 miles or 100 miles. So that is really alarming because you have a whole lot of population in a certain area, and then the number of service providers versus the people who actually need the service is really, really disparate, like really, really far away. So the disparity access is really there. So that is something that could be closing the gap. So just look at that area. It's very interesting. It's a mental health desert right there. And of course, you've got, health deserts, especially in the US, places that you can't find even one doctor. And what you're going to do about that? So you got virtual physical therapy also. It's also part of the health deserts. Remote management of chronic diseases It also falls under the idea of health deserts. Okay. Any questions so far, you guys? Are you with me? All good? I hope so.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the response. All right, let's keep going. Another one that is really important, and it's happening in different tempo all over the world. When I say different tempo, some countries are really fast. They're in there. They're already in there because that is how the society is. So, for example, if you look at Scandinavia area, Northern Europe, if you say value-based care, it's a no-brainer because the whole society is designed within value-based perspective model. So like, yeah, of course we have value-based care. Why are we even talking about it? You see, for example, in other places, when you say value-based care, like, what in the world are you even talking about? We don't even have fee-for-service care, let alone value-based care, you see? So when we're talking about this industry, we always need to hone down which territory or region we're really, really focusing on, because the tempo is different, the language is different. But then in a bigger scale, okay, omitting the ones who are advanced in this aspect, in a bigger scale, there is a transition to value-based care. There is an acceleration to value-based care. The value-based model is becoming more and more a reality than a fiction, because I say fiction because 9 years ago, literally 9 years ago, when you say value-based care, it's purely in the clouds conversation between academicians. Because the thing a practicing physician will tell us, guys, we cannot implement this because we have so many points that cannot, they're not even existent to begin with. Because value-based care really need a lot of data in order to go, like, to have an idea of what the value is and to make sure that the patient outcome is actually positive. So to even quantify that, to allow value-based model to actually be there, the main infrastructure was not around, let alone having the model, you see? So now it's different because now we're having smart technologies around. We got, like a little bit of, how can I say, rich and aggregated and cleaner biomedical data, right? We're there, at least we're there, thanks goodness. So prioritizing patient outcomes is starting to become clearer and much more feasible by the day, because now we can quantify if that journey is, has been successful or not. And these are touch points. In order to actually answer that question, it's about touch points. And these touch points should be digitized in a sense, like quantified in a sense, which is where we're at, where we're going. Leveraging data for performance. And that's exactly what KPI is all about. Before, you don't know. Like, oh yeah, they entered here and they went there and then they got a surgery and they got discharged. But you don't really know what happened from A to B to C to D, right? You just don't know. You just know that this patient went through this because the doctors and the nurses and the surgeons have coordinated among themselves. But as a hospital administrator, you really usually have no say in a sense for the protocol or the clinical workflow. You don't really have a say. And I'm talking from a real experience where I'm given the care coordination clinical workflow, and they are expecting this different technologies to be in place, to be, up and running. But then we have no say why, when, and how, and if this patient journey is successful or not. And that is really alarming because it means there's a divide within the hospital. So that is something important. The other one is focusing on prevention despite data and payment model complexities. Every country has a problem with this. If it's a pure socialist, the payment model is usually between the government and the hospital systems. So the patient is a bystander. If it's a pure for-profit model, then you are dealing with insurance and out-of-pocket kind of expenses. And also you have to think about that. So also when you're innovating, think about that part. It's very, very important. And also in prevention, as I said, instead of only treating reactively, we're looking at proactively. And that's where data is the king and AI is the queen, because it allows data to be, well interpreted. All right, driving forces of where we're going and where the money will go and what will keep VCs and every regulatory professional and everything on the lookout is the fact that there is an aging population in most of the countries in the world, whether we like it or not. And the ones that have younger populations, for example, in the global south, they are experiencing a dent of like lower birth rates, except Nigeria. Okay, let's just put Nigeria on the outlier. Except Nigeria, even the global south is experiencing a form of delayed birth rates in the current, main, bulk of the youth. So yes, they may look like they have a lot of youth, but then you have to also look at the birth rate. It's not as grandiose or magnificent as before, as in the in past couple decades. So aging population, if it's not now in the West, for example, it's gonna be later in the global South. That's coming over. Elderly care is a thing. Do we have enough innovations within elderly care? Not so much. Do we have enough evidence-based care? Not so much. That's also a gap, a huge gap actually in healthcare. Chronic disease burden, different chronic diseases in different areas with different lifestyles. And that's also an opportunity to innovate, but also it's a research gap also. Rising healthcare costs and access disparities, as we said earlier, technological advancements and data explosions. If you own the data, you are the king, because you can not only provide insights and predictive analytics to the area that you're serving, but you can also refine your models, refine your product launches, and refine the care that you're providing. Increased patient expectations for personalized care. And I say this a lot. And imagine, even when I say this, a lot of people in the boardroom do not understand what I mean. What I mean by this is that patients are expecting a different form of care now because of the healthcare, because of the apps, because of how everything is kind of instant gratification, right? Like you buy something on Amazon, it comes over. You are expecting some form of a responsive, right? Responsive interaction with the clinical world. You don't want to be only a bystander. You just do the best bystander. You don't want to be a passive patient. You want to actively discuss the best optimized treatment plan for yourself. And that is the difference from before. Before, when you are a patient, they prescribe something, you just take it and just leave, right? You just do exactly what you're being told. Now it's different. It started with WebMD, it started with Google. People are Googling their symptoms. Now we have ChatGPT and other, LLMs. People are talking to these AI models to figure out what's wrong with them, right? And they have a sense of idea what could be the thing. So they're expecting an intellectual kind of discourse with their physicians. And that's very, very important. That is something that older physicians were not used to, that the patients actually are asking for alternative methods, alternative treatments, and options to choose from, right? So that is something that innovation now is needed, because the paradigm shift is by default happening. So if your innovation is user-friendly, responsive, personalized, then you are a sure go. You are a sure success. You keep holding on how it used to be before, then I'm sorry, it's gonna really be obsolete, because that's what the new generation is requiring. And of course, the continued acceleration of AI development. This is a different vertical going on, but you have to keep an eye on, because whatever is happening in the AI world will kind of translate into the healthcare. Maybe not that fast in comparison to other industries, but it's happening nevertheless. So the more we do, the more we innovate and make it more accurate, actually achieve tangible, positive results. For example, eliminating cancer before it happens. Then we are actually, why not bring on the technological advancements, right? Something like that. Any questions so far? I believe all is well. All is well. All right. So let's look into this, this time exactly. So where are we? We are actually on a very interesting cusp. And the cusp is from pilot projects to scalable solutions. So pilot projects are where usually the kind of the staple of digital health. Oh, it's very new. It might be disruptive. It's tiny. It will perhaps be integrated here, but it's not really that scalable. It could be an attaché. It could be absorbed by a bigger company. It will be absorbed by the EMR companies or the EHR companies. You see, that was the conversation. That was the talk in the digital health realm before 2024, 2025 situation. It's all about, let's make an API that a bigger company will buy us out. That's it. But now we're looking at scalable solutions. We're looking at one company gulping up a whole range of services and becoming scalable in different territories and not being afraid of being scalable. You see? So imagine the shift, right? From a company, a startup that actually the aim is to be bought out by a bigger company like EMRs or EHRs or some Amazon or Oracle or something, to actually wanting to become the Google of health. Yeah? So that's where we're at. The confidence is rising. All right. So yes.
So I have a question on the previous slide.
Yes. Which one? This one?
Oh, yes. So
Yeah.
when you said like it's scalable solution,
Mhm.
when we are building a product, do we have to build a product with scalability, or do we have to build like a small one which can be scaled up to a X extent?
You're talking about from the product ops, right? Like
Yes.
at the beginning. Okay,
Yes.
so from a let me talk from a ground level. It's better to do an MVP first, run
Okay.
it in the wild, do some A/B testing, right? Run it in the wild. You see a higher feedback loop, then start building your company. Build your company, because this is what's gonna happen anyways. The shift is happening already, you see? So don't think about, oh, I'm just gonna make an MVP and that's it, and then hopefully to be bought out. No. Once you see that the patients or the pre-patients or the consumer health, right, the health consumers have a higher response to you, right? Positive response to your product, then become confident and start building it, and then rallying in your investors or rallying in your your team and build around it, like from a longevity point of view. Which what I mean by that you're building a company that will outstand all the trends and all that stuff. That is really what would be my recommendation. But start with an MVP. Do not just jump in and make a very complicated product. That's
Okay.
not realistic. It's very dangerous also, because you do not know what people really want until you kind of touch base with them first. And that's what MVP is all about.
Mhm.
Okay? All good?
Good.
Yes. Perfect.
Mm.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
can I
just
interrupt
with
for a
your
minute?
confidence. Oh, yes. By all means. Yes.
Oh, sorry. No, my question is regarding
Yes.
like, okay, I'm a
Yes.
okay, I don't have a lot of money to fund my business or my startup and go on, right? So I have to get VCs and these kind of things, and it's going to be a bit more slower process comparing with the big giants and everything. So my worry is,
Of
okay,
course.
let's say if I'm coming up with a product, and what is it going to take for them to knock me out of the park and then they just create one?
Okay. Have you noticed how many times Google and Amazon and Apple have been trying to venture into health? Have you noticed how many failed products they have?
And they do have a lot. Like
You
even
should
right
see
now,
that.
the Amazon Apple's Watch is gonna come late.
Yeah, but if you notice something, you should see their history, because they're very good at publicity, obviously. But if you look at their history, they have a lot of failed, shall I say, competitive sub products, product lines within the healthcare. They had a lot of failures until now. Now they're like, okay, so we're gonna take here and take that. They're really actually like a big startup. It's just that they have unlimited budget. That's true. But then they also have a lot of failures. So as an innovator, if you really know that perhaps you may be, knocked out by a big giant like that, you should see where you can actually complement that in a sense. You see where you can complement, because they do have a lot of gaps. They do have gaps. For example, one gap that they have, for example, Amazon, I believe, or something. They do have a lot of gaps in sense of the trust. The people do not trust them. Like Google, yes, Google Health. Google Health have been trying so much. They've been trying so much to enter the world of healthcare, but then they don't have the trust. That's number one. Number two, they've been trying to enter the hospital system. I remember I entertained Apple and Google, Apple Health and Google Health in our center for precision medicine, because they wanted to like be part of the revolution of the genomics, right? The genomics and the precision health rather. So they wanted to be part of this, not necessarily providing the genetic data, but at least having the lifestyle data or the physiological data. Okay, so that was their entrance point. But then we realized that patients do not want Apple or Google Health to be part of this when they are giving up their very sensitive information. And that was the groundwork at that time. We're like, okay, we really cannot have you guys as vendors, because no matter how much we try to put it between the patient pool that we're dealing with, they don't want their information to be cross-pollinating, okay? Cross-pollinating with you guys. So that is something we experienced. So was shocking, because I thought that if we said Apple Health is our partner, then we're gonna have, rally in more people to actually be part of the clinical trials, yada yada. But not really. They're like, oh no, that we don't want that to happen. So that is a very important vertical that I dealt with. So I realized that not everything you see on the news is actually the glitter. There are challenges that they're having in specific areas. So if you are aware of these challenges, that they're actually having hard time to implement, have access, or scale, then that's where you go in there and flourish very well. Because eventually it's either gonna be merged by them, like you might sell your company if you want, or you might as well just outpace them to the point that they will just accept you, that you coexist with them. Okay, make sense? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense to me. I think I will have some more questions at the end of this thing to us personal to get some advice.
Yeah.
But right now I'm good to go.
Awesome. So just always think about the nature of the problem that you're dealing with. Who are the key players? What are their strengths and weaknesses? It's almost like a SWOT analysis, but it's very important. Whether they're big giants or small giants or upcoming giants, you also always have to look into their strengths and weaknesses. And always remember, not everything you see on the news is all it be all. Of course, it's a public company. It needs to look like they are immaculate, they are omnipresent, and they're ever evolving, no matter how many failures they have under their rug. And that's very important to always have in mind. As an innovator, you really need to study that landscape, irrespective of their strength, in a sense, on aspects like that. All right, so that is a food for thought. Let's look at where we're at. We're looking at moving beyond siloed pilots. And that's really important, because there's so many, we've experienced and we've witnessed so many pilots in terms of innovative products and startups, but they're on their own. No interchange, no integration. That's where we're at now. We're looking at integrating into EHRs, or electronic health records. We're looking at prioritizing interoperability. We're also looking at enabling system-wide deployment. And that is very, very heavy to even talk about, because not only every hospital or clinic or a medical center is siloed by its own, we also have siloed situation between departments, siloed situation between doctors, and siloed the situation between the administrators. You see? So even if we are moving to this is a very big whale, and it's a very frustrating whale. So going back to what you asked about, why the big giant can eat me up easily if I have a startup. Think about this problem they deal with. Why will they eat you up if the one that they have to serve, right? The clinical care world is literally siloed. So even if they buy in everything else, they can't even penetrate this problem, penetrate this whole ecosystem, because the ecosystem is landlocked, highly regulated, and siloed within itself. So they cannot even deploy something properly without going through hoops and different stakeholders and different people and politics and regulation and government and all of that stuff. So from a tech company, it doesn't look like it's a feasible, nor is it a worthy ideal. Like, it's not worth to do it, because it's just too much. But they know that it is a highly lucrative industry. It's just that it's difficult to enter. And that is one of the reasons why, no matter how much Amazon Health, Amazon and Google and Apple, these are the three tech giants that are really, really trying their best. And they're, launching every time. They're launching. It's either they're trying to become authority figure, they're trying to build some wearables, they're trying to build apps. They're doing anything outside the clinical care. If you notice, everything they do is outside the actual where the magic happens, basically, which is the hospitals and the clinics. So that is something you have to also look into. Food for thought. All right. So beyond technical interoperability, beyond the fact that EHRs are different, the data information that's being accumulated it's siloed. Offline, literally, servers within the hospital don't even have access to that. With all that technical challenges, how do we address the human interoperability challenge? Ensuring clinicians and patients can effectively use and understand integrated data across systems. And this is a food for thought, because it's not designed to be answered now, because we will unravel this by the minute. So we got now the patients, right, of this generation, the patients of this time is actually very much digitized. Almost everything is online. Almost everything is being transacted online. All right, so, okay, good. But are the clinicians digitized? That's a question. It depends now where you're at, what territory you're at. Are they open for digitization? Where are you? What's the place? What's the territory? Again, it's gonna get siloed again. See? So when you're asking this question now, we have to hone down to territory. Like in the US, how is it in the US? Is it allowed even for the clinicians to actually share information outside the HIPAA compliance framework? You see? So that is a food for thought. And also with everything that is a challenge, there's a lot of opportunities to innovate. So that is a very interesting one to actually look into. All right, another thing that we're going is to ensure sustainability. Healthcare will demand ROI, require viable business models beyond venture capital, and conduct rigorous cost-effective analysis. And this is not in Cloud9. This is literally a conversation I had, which is, how can we allow our systems to be sustainable given the pressures from the outside? What are the pressures that healthcare systems have? For example, one simple one is the patients of that certain city will fly out to Turkey, for example, to administer their clinical care. And that's a reality, for example, for a lot of Europeans and British people. They will fly to Turkey to, conduct their desired clinical care, whether that is a chronic illness, whether it's hair transplant, whether some form of clinical care, which is basically they're becoming medical tourists in another country because they saw and witnessed that having your clinical care administered, delivered in Turkey is way better than the NHS, which is a never-ending waiting list for a certain simple outpatient service. Seriously, that is a reality. People are flying to places where they think they will be treated best. So clinics in different territories are like, oh my God, we're not capturing our regions. We're not capturing our city because people are flying out. How can we attract them back? So this is a conversation that a lot of CEOs and executives are having because it's a reality. Flying became a reality. And why is that? Why are patients flying out of their country or out of their state to be administered a better clinical care? Like in the US, for example, I think in California or Texas, a lot of people go to Mexico for dentistry. That is a reality. A lot of people go for their teeth. Why? Because dentistry in the US is really, really expensive and the quality is meh, right? So it's not really high quality. So that is a reality that a lot of executives have to deal with. As an innovator, that is an opportunity for you to figure out how to solve this in a sense. So that is also important for you to think about, is that if people are already moving, isn't that already digitization? Because they're moving. So if they're not really stuck in one area, they can actually go to another country to actually get their clinical care. That's another food for thought for you. Another one. So how can startups build robust business models that thrive in a value-based care environment where reimbursement is tied to patient outcomes rather than volume of services? That is very important because if you are going to innovate within the times right now, and if you're in the US right now, you're going to be dealing with value-based care model, care coordination. This is something that's being pushed upon hospitals by the government. It's really been pushed by the federal government, really. And NIH is also pushing it because they want to make sure that readmission of the same patient is, kind of lowered. So that is really important to realize that this is a reality you have to deal with if you're dealing with the US healthcare. So how are you going to be, how are you going to make money now? If it's not about volume of service, it's not fee for service. It's about making sure the patient outcomes is correct or positive. So how is that going to make money? And that is something I want you guys to think about. This is a food for thought, by the way, because it's not yet answered. All right, moving on. So we got emphasis on establishing standards, ensuring regulatory clarity, and addressing legal, ethical concerns of digital health. For example, if we talk about US FDA, and you have to keep an eye, a big eye on the US FDA part. Why? Because they are actively making regulatory frameworks around the new technologies in healthcare. Just recently, I believe, last November, they already published a regulatory framework for software as a medical device, or should I say SAMD. So if you're gonna do anything that will treat or diagnose, recommend, have a touch point with the body, like a patient body, then you are talking about a medical device. Even if it's a software, then it becomes a software as a medical device. So it will adhere to the regulations and to the constraints of the medical device framework. So SAMD before was a talk. Before, if you want to innovate on SAMD and have a pilot project, usually it's on the gray area. It goes under de novo healthcare, and even FDA like looks into it as a case-to-case basis. And usually it takes a long time for it to be registered. But now they have a regulatory framework. They're like, okay, we get it. We understand what's the outline of SAMD, and here is the regulation. Follow it to the T so that you can get registered on time. So that is good news, because now we have standardization, right? It's no more de novo. It's no more like in the gray, right? And it's not case-to-case basis anymore. So that is important to look into. So when you're trying to innovate in the healthcare, also think about clarity. Know about your outlines. This is one of the hardest industry where you cannot be too creative, because you being too creative might, put the patient's lives at risk, right? Or you can make a very erroneous biases, and you don't want to be, drowning in lawsuits because of that. So always consult the legal and ethical aspects of health, and also keep an eye on the US FDA publications. All right, scalability, which is really, really important if you're going to build something that will outlive you, outpace you, and hopefully if you want to become an IPO or merge it with a bigger company, scalability is the key, right? So think about it. You got regulations from US FDA, or for example, the EU Commission or other FDAs in the world, and then you want to be scalable. So what is this? Is this a science or an art? It's actually an art, because now you're trying to accumulate robust user base, but not upsetting the regulations, not upsetting the main framework, the outline of safety for patients, and the ethical aspects as well. So you're looking at user-friendly design. Look into what works in other apps, for example, or other user interfaces that people use. Like, for example, look into TikTok, look into Instagram. I think these are user-friendly in a sense. And then capture those elements and then integrate that into healthcare, because they already tell you it's a winning user interface. Just capture that and then tweak it for healthcare. And also think about equitable access. So for example, people who are colorblind, do you want to use colors that colorblind people cannot look into, cannot really differentiate between cancel and okay, or go and stop, for example? That is something that you have to look into. But it is really a user interface kind of design principles. But then when you're in healthcare, figure out what could be the hindrances, right? So people who are visually impaired, or like a different type of impairment, maybe they're neurodiverse. If you're designing for neurodiversity, maybe they are in the autism spectrum. Maybe they don't want to have a lot of clutter or colors. It will really upset them. Or if you are designing in mental health, you don't want to make it extremely like cluttery, because it will really, stress them out if they have high anxiety, for example. So these are verticals that you have to look into according to the target audience and the target demographic that you're trying to serve. But that is really the cornerstone for your scalability. So again, from a designer point of view, look into the winning interfaces out there and how easy they are to navigate, and then tweak them to your target patient pool. All right, more. So data-driven optimization, which is really banking on everything that we said before. you are able, if you create an ecosystem that is user friendly and people are entering it and giving you their information with their consent and they are happy with your service online, that is from digitized point of view, then you are accumulating byproductly, like byproduct, you're accumulating real world evidence because you're literally telling the world what works and what doesn't. Guess what? Do we have a real world evidence of a digital health that is really robust in a sense? Like the unicorn that we can look into? Not really. We have unicorns that are trying to create, to innovate in health, but we do not have healthcare unicorns by their own merit, like the go-to unicorn. Not yet. What does that mean? It's still a fertile ground to create something that is really, really grandiose and extraordinary. All right. So always remember, for continuous improvement, and this is really from the product ownership and product design, product management. For continuous improvement, always make sure that you have an open line with your potential users so that you can have a performance monitoring and an active feedback loop of what works and what doesn't. Because if you're going to go into the space of patients, always remember, these are humans after all, but they have something that they want to take care of that is specific. So, be always in tune with what they are seeking, not just on the aspect of entertainment or they're bored because they want to enter your platform. No, they are seeking something. So always have an open ears for that. All right. Any questions so far, you guys? All is well? All aboard. Okay, so food for thought. Okay. How can we incentivize healthcare providers and patients to actively participate in feedback loops, ensuring that their valuable insights are incorporated into the ongoing development of healthcare tech? As I said earlier, like if you really want to make a sure innovation out there that is being used and actually it's a lucrative business. You got people who are organically, joining your ecosystem, not necessarily brute forced by a provider, for example, but actually people want to join your system. They enjoy your ecosystem and enjoy the service, and the service actually does the job. Then how can you incentivize healthcare providers so that they could also be part of this? The thing is here, when you think about this part, is that if you look into it, like if you zoom out, healthcare providers only think that they have to treat the person and then they just, discharge. Diagnose, treat, discharge. That's their clinical workflow. That's the classical one. To incentivize them to actually even be part of the ecosystem and also incentivize the patients to be part of the ecosystem, you have to serve both ways. You have to serve the needs of the providers as well, so that they can give you, knowledge transfer. They can actually refer your software or refer your wearable to the patients they have. You have to cater to their need. And what are their needs? That is the power of user research, right? You will figure out their needs. And also that will cascade into the patients. The patient might even recommend you to their provider because they believe that if the provider is also opted in, they can have a better clinical care. And then again, you have to look into the needs of both ways. So sometimes, just sometimes, in healthcare, you need to take care of different segments at the same time. So it's a trio. So it's like a tripod. You got the patient, the healthcare provider, and then the vendor. The three things. You have to take care of the tripod. All right? And so far, this is not really happening much. It's either patient only, provider only, or clinical administrator only. That's the reality of the meantime. But then if you can merge the three, then you are in a very, very good spot. All right, let's keep going here. Let's talk about the driving forces, the real technology behind it. We got a driving force of AI and machine learning, AI as an umbrella, and machine learning as one subcategory of AI. So what is this cognitive technology doing for us? It's literally enhancing the diagnostic capabilities as of the moment, really. So for example, you're looking at image analysis, whether in the radiology finding anomalies of potential tumors, potential lumps, right? Or pathology. And also, for example, in skin cancer, that is a big one. Moles, for example, because it's literally outside the body, right? So you can actually have a camera or some form of, portable device that can do the job. So image analysis is on the rise. Computer vision, part of it is also on the rise in a sense. You're also looking at disease risk and progression using predictive analytics, as I've said earlier. That's also one of the bigger pillars. And you're also looking at personalized treatment plans using genomic analysis and finding, mutations of variants, mutations of some genes, making sure they're not activated, shifting the lifestyle before the gene will be ever mutated, something of that nature. So these are three, shall I say, powerful technological advancements that are happening that are no more only on the labs. They're not just a talk in academia, but they're actually part of acquisitions, part of procurement. Clinics are actually actively starting to buy and talk to vendors for this, by the way. We are there now. So maturity of the actual transaction, the monetary transaction, the lucrative part of any business is actually happening by 2025 because the administrators are already ready. The executives understand the power of this already. Okay, that's one. The other one is personalized treatment and drug discovery. So we're looking at biopharma. We're looking at pharmaceutical side, the pharma tech. So we're looking at AI-driven drug development and repurposing. If you notice, there's a lot of drugs out there, but they're not necessarily as effective as they could be. So that is also one venture that you can look into, or also watch very carefully, because now we're gonna have faster turnout to treat more chronic illnesses, right? The other one is personal medicine through AI analyzed patient data, and that is something that is it's a conversation. It's a long-going conversation between vendors, data farms, data warehouses, data analytics firms, and the clinics or the hospital systems, because they have to supply that information, right? And in virtual clinical trials, and that is what one of my ventures is, Gina Health, and it's all about virtual clinical trials for mental health. And it's basically making sure that we can reproduce and venture and also discover new pathologies and new patterns within a certain diseases or certain illnesses without the actual person per se, because we will start having digital replicas. It's a very interesting world. It's still infant in its technology, but it's really amazing because we will be able to treat more illnesses and also discover more potential conditions that we may not know about that could be diagnosed and treated faster before it becomes highly deteriorating for the brain, for example. All right, automation workflow optimization. This is something you see deep in the clinical care. So you're looking at the billing and the scheduling, which is a big problem, and also the waiting time, right? Whether you are in network, not in network, out of patient, not out patient, are you a Medicaid, Medicare? Are you a citizen of the country? Are you for example, in a socialist place? Are you eligible to have healthcare or not? All of this stuff can be somehow automated prior you even stepping into the hospital system. That is really, really important, which means lesser waiting times, lesser burnout for the staff, lesser confusion among clinicians and the practicing nurses, stuff like that. AI-powered chatbots for patient support. Emotional support is really very, very important. From the scare that maybe you have a tumor, from that scare to the scare of going out from surgery and finding yourself alone, especially for people who don't have families or they're immigrants in some areas. It is the scariest thing alive, is to get out of a surgery and realize that you don't have anyone waiting on you, right? So something that we have to cater to. It's an emotional support. And AI can actually help, with a friendly robot, for example, which is happening in Japan. Robotic process automation healthcare setting. That's exactly what I was talking about. Like Japan has AI nurses that go into the ward and go to patient by patient. They have an idea who they are, and they ask if they took their medications, if they're feeling well, if they rate your pain level, stuff like that. And ethical considerations and responsible AI implementation. And that's where the governments and a lot of policymakers are really honing down now, because they're afraid that there will be a wild, wild west of AI flooding the clinical care without much, standardization. And that's also a scare, by the way. You might get, biohacked for all we care. All right. So going back to how things are going to the hybrid care model, if you remember. So now you can literally have virtual visits and in-person visits. So virtual visits could be for low entry or like not that serious of a diagnosis. Like, and then once it shows something that needs in-person interaction, then you can enter. So now the clinics are no more like, oh, walk in and you're like, oh, I have a fever. You can be diagnosed with a fever and get prescribed. You don't need to walk in. You don't need to rub someone else's waiting list and stuff like that. And that's really important. So hospital at home expansion is a reality. So if you want to innovate outside the hospital, look at what could be an extension to it, right? So for example, diagnostics for fever, for dengue, for malaria, that could be a possibility. Perhaps you can automate some aspects. For example, you can send off the different moles or different anomalies in the teeth or something like that, sending some profiling way before even entering the clinics. And they can tell you if they can cater to you or not, and they can sort and send you to the nearest clinic that may actually be available in time being. So these are all possibilities, by the way. It's all could be a potential, and the timing is right because now they can listen. Most clinicians can listen. All right, so back to the RPM, because this is also one of the biggest things we have to look into, is the wearable sensors. Please look at how the wearable sensors are advancing by the minute, right? Some things are attached, some things are bracelets, some things are actually like this one. It's like a Band-Aid. And how are they connected? And to what are they connected, right? So the ideal is that your RPM data program is actually possible or interpretable to an EHR. So if you are looking into this as a product, then look into EHRs that are open to having a kind of an API within your ecosystem. That way, you are basically making a seamless exchange, and even potential patients will be dispatched to you because you are part of the system. That's one thing. So always remember that an AI power analysis of an RPM technology is really activating a proactive intervention. You want to make sure that the person is alert that they may have a heart stroke, they may have a heart attack because of the way the fluttering of the heart is way before it happens. Or they might faint. They're susceptible to fainting way before it happens. That is the power of RPM. It can alert the patient of potential adverse effect way before it may happen. And in an ideal world, it can even alert their care physician, their clinical care physician or clinical care provider way before it happens. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is preventive medicine at play. And I hope that we can have that seamlessly in the next few years. All right, DTX, digital therapeutics. As of the moment, US FDA is trying to understand what is the difference between software as a medical device and digital therapeutics. Right now, as of the moment, there's a lot of discussions, and there's also one workshop that's going to be done by NIH in 2 weeks, just to discuss this, because how can you make policy and make regulatory framework so that vendors can follow if these two seems to be eerily similar, but at the same time is not? So we have to kind of figure it out. I'm telling you something that's right now being in discussion, right? But it's good to look into it. So look at this diagram. I hope it will give you an idea. So digital health includes digital medicine and DTX. It's an umbrella. Digital medicine is a subset of digital health. And then within digital medicine, you got digital therapeutics. So it's very important. This slide is really, really important. So what are types of products? If you look at DTX, we're looking at products that deliver therapeutic intervention. Anything that will actually have a kind of an intervention of treatment of a sense, then you are looking at DTX. Anything that is not treatment-based, therapeutic in a sense, then you are venturing to digital medicine or digital health as a bigger spectrum. Okay, so in the clinical evidence, if you notice, digital health, not necessarily, you don't need clinical evidence, not that required. But once you enter the diagnostics and the treatment side, which is digital medicine and digital therapeutics, then please be sure that's requirement of clinical evidence, and you have to go through the whole due diligence, and US FDA will be also alerted. They're still not there yet with DTX in terms of regulation, but it is something in the works as of the moment. All right. So regulatory oversight in digital health is not really required, but then once you enter intervention, then it's very much required and it's seen as a medical device. Okay. So examples, behavior programs where you're intervening with the patient, self-care programs that actually intervenes with the way the person is being treated, something like that. But if you are, capturing information like blood flow sensors or monitoring, then you are in the gray area. You may need requirement, you may not need requirement. But if it is purely like a visualization, insights of data, where we're at, the dashboard and all that, which is digital health in a sense, then you are on the off the hook in a sense, because you're not really treating the patients. You are not intervening, having intervention with the patients. Okay. All right. So now let's look at digital health from a bigger standpoint, where we can actually have a lot of fun, which is not required to have clinical evidence, yada, yada. Look at that. You look at wellness apps. There's so many wellness apps. I suggest that you look into it and, venture into it and then explore it, because there are good features in so many ones, but sometimes some things flop. Leave the flopping ones and take the winning features and then just integrate together, right? So you're looking at fitness trackers are starting to kind of merge with health data. That's what Apple Health and Samsung Health are trying to do, because they realize they cannot just enter DTX right away, but they're really trying to. But so what they did is they went around the healthcare system, by which they entered through wellness and fitness, right? And sports medicine. So they went around that area because they know that they're capturing physiological data, but they're not necessarily answering to the intervention of patients, okay? So the focus of wellness apps, which is something that is a low-hanging fruit, is preventive care and lifestyle interventions, not clinical interventions. That's the difference here. All right. So a little bit on why it is strict and strict and strict is because you're looking at cybersecurity, you're looking at biohacking, you're looking at ransom problems that happens in hospitals, and also, just your data being leaked somewhere, like how credit cards are being leaked. That's very dangerous. Your genetic data is being leaked somewhere. My goodness, right? So this is why there's a lot of regulation on the cybersecurity. So if you're a new innovator, I do suggest that you enter through a digital health and then venture slowly once you're learning more about cybersecurity and data interoperability and data capture, and also making sure that it is not being leaked anywhere. So that's really, really important. Also, there's one trend that you have to look into is the patient-controlled health information. And that is something that is, we call it PHR. It's not an EHR, it's a PHR, personal health records, where the patient is the one who tells you what you should see and should not see. So that is the trend going on. It will take a bit of time, but this is really where the patient need is happening and the patient demand is going. That I capture my own information and I let you know what I want you to know, because these are my information, my data. And who do you think will be chaperoning patient-controlled health information? That's basically EU. The European Union has a lot of sense of the principle of citizenry, where the patient or the citizen has the right to tell you what you need to know. And that is something that will really sprout from the European Union. So if you're in the EU market, just have a good eye on this. All right, so that is a little bit out of scope, but if you look into it, that there is a problem. There's a problem vulnerability of connected medical devices. Even though we want to have interoperability, we want the data exchange to happen, we want the vendors to exchange information, we want active feedback loop, but at the same time, we are afraid of connected medical device. Why? Why is that? Hacking. Someone just hacks your robot, your surgical robot. Imagine you have, for example, think about this. You have a VIP, okay, who's gonna have a robotic surgery, and some shady wanted to hack the person, want to have a ransom on that person, or some form of assassination, for example, cybercrime. They will hack the surgical robot. The surgeon is doing their protocols and everything, and they're in different country or in different state. But then what's being administered or what's being delivered literally by the robot to the patient is something entirely different. And then from a medical ethos, who is to blame? Is it the robot or the surgeon? The surgeon has followed the clinical protocol, but then what has been done is something erroneous, and it caused the death of the person. So what's the lawsuit here? Who is going to be damaged? And the third party is the system got hacked because cybersecurity was very low standard or substandard, or there was a loophole somewhere. So that is really a fear, a great fear of a lot of executives when they're trying to purchase mobile, not only mobile but surgical robotics. Because of this, you're putting someone's life at risk that is beyond the dexterity or the technical technical superiority of the robot. You're literally having a software running that could be interjected by an unknown hacker, cyber criminal, and then you cause a lot of deaths like that. So think about it from that standpoint. And that's also a fear that is very, very legit. All right. So we talked about this. So the shift from fee-for-service to value-based care, and also the emphasis on patient outcomes and cost effectiveness. It's pretty expensive to have healthcare administered in some parts of the world, and there's always a gap in there. If you don't have insurance, good Lord have mercy. If you really just want to extract a tooth, that's really a reality in the US. So, and not only in the US, in different countries that are for profit or hybrid. So that is also important to realize that with the advancement technology, we're going to more cost effective. Hopefully we can cater to more delivery of care. All right. So yeah, so we talked about this earlier. I'm very happy that we kind of, touch point to this. But the thing is, the data analytics is all about tracking patient outcomes because we really want to, activate the value-based model. So that is really important. All right. So again, that is also stitched to it is the preventive care and population health. Last week I had an interesting board meeting and we talked about population health and public health surveillance. So with outbreaks that happened, right, a few years back, we realized that if you don't have proper public health surveillance, we'll just lock down the whole country. Was that a do you think that is a smart way to go about things? No, not really. A whole country being locked down, the whole world got locked down. Things have not only slowed down, they went regressive. So the other conversation that the population health, and health economists and governments are having, but like, how about we make sure that we prepare for this before it even happens by robust continuity of public health surveillance, knowing if there is an outbreak somewhere, we contain it before it's too late, because information can really tell you that. And that is a powerful space for innovation, as of the moment, by the way. All right. So there's another thing that I want you guys to look into if you are wanting to deal with outpatient kind of services or home care. Look into extended reality. Since we have a trend of hospital at home expansion, right? Like we're looking at home care, then there's also the possibility to administer therapies in the home, especially for people who, for example, are paralyzed and they need to have some form of rehabilitation. Okay. And that's a module on its own. Please go to my website. There's a whole thing about this. If you want to know more about it, just let me know. All right, so challenges and opportunities. Always remember, you're dealing with privacy and security. These are 2 points. If you can handle these two, your product is robust and can be out to the market. If you cannot answer these two, you might be subject to ransom, you might be subject to hacking, and even VCs will look into it from these two. So like, what's your security policy in place? How are you setting up your security? And how are you setting up your privacy? Not only for the patients, but also for potential hackers or ransom. This is something that is happening from a public-private partnership situation, is that a lot of healthcare providers and nurses feel they're obsolete. And they feel like AI is taking over in a sense, like everything is smart. So they're like, how are we going to co-deliver care? So now there is a whole opportunity to actually upskill people so that they can actually learn how to use AI within their clinical workflow. It's not that mature yet as a market, by the way, but it's a growing market nevertheless. But it's not yet mature. It's in the infancy stage. So if you are thinking to enter this space, I do welcome you to look into this. All right. So any questions so far, you guys? So far, so good. All right, so this is the last page. The future of healthcare is personalized, proactive, and integrated. I am open for the Q&A. Hello, hello.
Maybe I can start.
Oh yes, please, by all means. I'm going to turn off
So
my
you
screen now
discussed-
so I can actually see you guys.
Yeah,
Where are you
sure.
at?
That will be
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. Yeah, there you go. Stop presenting. All right. Hello. Let's do this.
Hi. So I was just wondering regarding with the you said about the watch bands and these kind of things being proactive with clinical and lifestyle. Like, can you give me some examples? Like,
Uh-huh.
what do you mean by clinical and lifestyle?
Okay. So you're talking about hold on a second. You're talking about clinical in terms of data. Are we talking about data now?
No, I'm talking about the intervention. So let's say you said that if you're using AI for analyzing some data, and we need to distinguish between clinical intervention and lifestyle intervention. And can you give
Oh
me some
yes. Oh
examples?
yes. Okay, sure. So when we say about clinical intervention, you're looking at, the clinical workflow. First of all, you diagnose, right? So you have to diagnose if that person has a certain disease. Then, of course, you have a triage where you have to, implement or implicate different specialists to figure out that whatever you have diagnosed is not in coherence with other things, right? You have specialists in place. So once you have that in place after triage, then you're like, okay, so we have a potential chronic illness, right? That is in its early intervention, which was in its early development. And this is the clinical protocol. Usually that's what happens, like clinical protocol. Here is the treatment plan. Please come over here every 3 months, right? To monitor your diagnosis. Here's the prescription. This is the classical way. Here are some medicine, right? And perhaps even some interventions within the hospital. And then I will see you every 90 days to check if you are developing or regressing or progressing, right? That's usually like in a classical overview. Of course, every chronic illness, every illness has its own way of doing things and different protocols. So diagnosis, treatment has either intervention in a sense, surgical intervention or medical intervention or prescription intervention, right? So we broke it into 3. That's intervention. And then you have the part of monitoring, which means that after surgery, you're going to monitor if the person is doing better, neutral, or got worse, right? So that's how they see it. Even with prescription, did the patient progress, regress, or is neutral? Neutral, there's something else. Regressive, definitely something else is also at play. So we have to go back to diagnosis, right? Progressive, great. We're entering positive patient outcome. That person is entering the last tail of clinical workflow, which means we've done our job, right? We took care of the illness or the disease, right? You see how I broke it down? But this is very simplified, by the way, very, very simplified. So in diagnosis, there is one thing that is really important, is that the classical way is reactive. It means when you feel some sort of pain, right? Or like something swelling, then you go to the doctor, right? That's usually the case. Like something hurts me, I'm going to go to the doctor for symptomatic, right? The lifestyle part, I said, lifestyle intervention is before feeling some sort of pain or seeing some sort of symptoms. You have a continuous monitoring of your own lifestyle and own food intake and everything that you've said before, remember? Like a wearable, taking your own, like every day, right? So that is prior diagnosis, because you yourself, you are monitoring yourself day and night, you see?
Yeah.
Which is disruptive in a sense, because if people used to go to clinics when they feel pain or swelling or bleeding, now you're like, I'm coming over because it seems like my data is playing somewhere in my glucose levels. Doesn't look that good. I'm coming over with my data, right? I'm coming over because something looks not so good. Yeah, I'm fine, but my data telling me that something is off with my heartbeat. You see? You see what I'm trying to say here? So that is the Yeah, there you go. No, there you're fine because you're not intervening. You're not. There's no intervention, but it's a lifestyle intervention.
Mhm.
I go to the
So
clinical
it's
care
more like a
because,
prediction.
yeah, there you go. That's why we say, hopefully we have a proactive and a preventive medicine because that will activate that. Me, as a potential patient, goes to the clinic and declares that something is off with my heart because apparently for the past 6 months I've been stable, and then the past month I'm having some weird abruptions, right? And look at my data, everybody. And I give you the consent, I give you the permission to have my data. You see what I'm trying to say here? Now I'm talking about my personal health records, giving it to a clinic. So that is
Yeah.
an example.
So it's like handing over.
Yes, you're handing it over because you own your data and you chose this clinical care, and you are showing them that, hey, I might not be symptomatic, like I'm not having a heart stroke or some form of a difficult heartbeat, like in a sense, but I think there's something, and I want you guys to look into it before it becomes a big problem. You see?
Right. Yeah. I
So
get what you
that's,
mean. And
yeah, that's lifestyle intervention. Clinical intervention is actually administering a automated protocol of what exactly the medication to be given to this person that has been diagnosed with heart arrhythmia. You see? The person has already entered the triage. So the cardiologist was there, the primary care physician was there, and they're like, okay, this person has early the detection of heart arrhythmia, and they have a possibility of having a heart attack. You see? So now we have to administer. Usually that is a human making that decision making. So when we say DTX, we're looking at maybe an AI giving me the treatment. Like, okay, according to this, because of millions of data, this patient XYZ, we're gonna give them 2 milligram of this, 1 gram of that. You see? And here's the e-prescription. So now we're talking about a highly regulated space because you are automating or co-deciding or recommending with the clinician. That's clinical intervention. You see?
Yeah. And that is more regulated, you say.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
Very much. But will it be scalable? Will it be very helpful for millions of people? Yes. But is it risky? Of course. 200% risky. Because if you have algorithmic bias, if you have a faulty software, if you have not enough information about the knowledge, right? If you have even different race, for example, different race have different phases and models of the heart, by the way. So if it's purely white population and you bring it to South Asia or you bring it to Africa, like Middle Africa, you're making a great mistake. You see?
Yeah.
So
I get what you mean.
So that, yes, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, but with that things like, so if we are training the AI data with only like, let's say white population, and we're bringing it to Africa or other Chinese country, then there's going to be a lot of issues happening with AI's prediction because it's going to miss the background context for the genetical things.
That's why data is king. You need to acquire more data.
Is it possible for us to use the client's data without, like, we're not selling to another insurance or any marketing company or any other research, but we are using it for our own purpose to improve our own model? Is it something we can get consent from our clients and users and use that data?
You see, if you ask that question 5 to 10 years ago, there will be a huge resistance. But now normal people, okay, average folks in different countries in the world, they see the power of digitization. They see the enablement, right? The empowerment. So if you ask them with consent, we ask them with trust, you make sure your cybersecurity is well done, and you tell them, we're trying to make it better. We're trying to make the models smarter and catering to your specific, background. Can you give us the consent to use the data? Yes or no? Of course, there will be people who will tell you no. That's normal. But people who know the gravity of the matter, I would surely give you my data, because you might not only help me, you might help my whole family or my whole country or my whole city, you see? So the shift of the perspective took at least 15, 20 years, by the way. It took at least 20 years. So the
You
timing is
mentioned
now.
one more thing with Google
Yeah.
and Amazon, Apple, everything is that people don't trust giving their data because they know that, for example, if you speak about something, the other day you can see it in your phone because Google is kind of
Yes,
listening or
yes.
whatever. So
Yeah,
there
you
is a
cannot.
trust issue here in this field.
Yes, yes. That's why I told you when you said earlier, oh, but the big giant might take over. I'm like, please look at their failure list. It's very, very long,
Mhm.
especially in healthcare. As a research and development person myself, I look into it because it's not about unlimited capital, nor is it about unlimited influence or user base. It's healthcare here, it's personal. Whether we like it or
Yeah.
not, healthcare is a personal thing. I don't want you to sell my data to somewhere where you know that I am susceptible to diabetes or I have a potential cancer or whatever. It's insensitive in a sense. And this is what a lot of executives do not understand, is that in the healthcare sphere, it's a family conversation. You see? This
Mhm.
is a family. Like you're giving your information to a trusted partner. So startups have more shall I say, leverage on that because you can literally know the founder, you know the team, you can literally find them and talk to them. It's very personalized in a sense,
So you can
if
create
you
a
think
personal
about it.
connection and build the trust from there.
Yes, yes. Trust is the reason for a lot of failures of big giants because of this. There's it's a no-brainer that big ones listen and they give us advertisement whether we like it or not, right? So people already know this. We like, for example, millennials and Gen Z,
Mhm.
they know this. This is the reality of things. You talk to anyone like, yeah, of course Google is listening to me. Of course I'm being bombarded by ads on YouTube. It's not like a new thought, right? So
Mhm.
if the Gen Z, for example, if you look at this is a little bit of an off rack, but it's very important data point. If you look at Gen Z's behavior in Instagram, just try it. Just research on your own. You realize that they do not share any photo and any story. It's the baby boomers, it's the Gen X, it's the early millennials who actually share pictures and selfies and stories. Gen Zers, they do not share a thing. Why is that? Why is the newer generation, which is basically the main generation, is very private despite being a digital baby? What does that mean, right? From an from an innovation point of view, they're all on Instagram. All of them have Instagram, but almost all of them have no posts, zero post. They
Mhm.
don't even share anything. Even their picture is blurred.
Yeah. And on this matter, like for me, when I'm thinking about this application, so there is two part to it. One is the hardware, where the watch is tracking and you can interact with your watch to log your things. And then comes the software, which analyzes your data and shows the data and lets you see, okay, what kind of what's happening.
That's really funny. Imagine I talked about something sensitive and I got locked out. I was like, "You're out of the meeting." I'm like, "Wow, this is so scary, Google. What you doing?" That's really funny. I got locked out. That's really funny.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
because of the time, because it's 3, so it just got kicked out.
Yes, it is automated. So I hope this lecture was fruitful. Please remember, this is not the last time. It's every 90 days, and whoever came in one lecture is already part of the list. You don't need to pay or anything. Is a complimentary access. And I hope that you guys have more questions for me in the next 90 days because the developments are amazing. And I have to form
Before you
a
go, do you
journal.
mind if I ask one
Oh, yeah.
more question, the last one?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about a watch, let's say I need to, like for my product, I'm more thinking like a watch and an application
Yeah.
because the watch is tracking and people can interact easily, like, hey, Nora, or something. And then
Yes, yeah.
the app gets the data, analyzes, and spits out some
Mhm.
analysis based on something. Where do you think I should start with? Because in my head, when I think about this, I'm a non-technical founder, so I need to find a technical, then investment, and I'm a bit.
Telegram
Can
is
you give
right
me some
here.
direction for me?
Telegram is right here.
I mean,
He's a
so whatever Raghu is like
There you go.
discussing, right? I already have that idea, but I also have
See?
like, sorry, say that again.
Now, please go ahead. He's a software engineer.
Yeah, so whatever Raghu is saying, yes, I had that idea and also like trying to implement it. But then I also have a question to Kat, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
there are so many products out there. Like, for example,
Uh-huh.
pick up this use case, right? The fitness
Yes.
tracking thing. How can, as a founder, how can you differentiate yourself from those products? Like, that's one of the things I'm like facing right now.
Yes. You see the thing here is that there's an influx of a lot of vendor products, right? I call them vendor because so many that looks the same.
Right.
And you need to figure out, first of all, number one, who's your target audience? Because if you're handling everyone, then you're handling no one.
That's
see?
right.
So first of all, niche down. As a startup, it is very wise to niche down. You may think at first like, oh, my scalability is not going to be good. No. Niche down way specific so that you are an outlier in a specific niche market. Once you capture that niche market, then you scale out to adjacent markets. You see?
I think I get it. But
You
then,
see what I'm,
yes. Another
Yes, go
question is also, I was like researching on this topic, like people don't invest into fitness things like priorly, like let's say 30 years of their life. But once they hit that 30-year age, then that's the audience which starts to look into
Oh, yes.
this, right? So is that the right assessment?
Yes. Now you have niche down. You have a demographic. You're looking at 30 plus working professionals. They're at their career prime, but then they feel the effects of the burnout of the 20s into their 30s. You see?
Right.
Now you have a niche. From that niche, you need to even niche more down. Who are these 30 plus working professionals who are dealing with what exactly? What is their pain point? You see? That is even more. Why is that important? Because as a startup with limited resources, limited access, all of the limitations, you need to become so specific about an important issue for a specific group of people that you understand them very well. You have to understand them. It's not like you just randomly pick them. That you take care of them. And then once they take care of them, these people have brothers, sisters, wives, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers. You see what I mean? These people are not alone. These people have people around them who have other adjacent problems. And if you capture the trust of one, you're capturing the trust of many, which is the problem of a lot of companies out there. They think that if they make something that's too like cross-platform, all over the place, everything under the sun, they're capturing someone. No, because it needs to resonate to someone. It needs to resonate. For example, I have my chronic illnesses. I have asthma. And if I talk a lot, then I start to cough, and as it happened earlier, right? So that is my pain point. I would like something to help me breathe better, right? But the only thing I have is medication. I would love something that could actually administer some form of relief when I have in my lectures, I shouldn't cough. But it is my reality. So I'm not the only one. There are a lot of other people in the boardrooms, perhaps, working professionals, right? Maybe in cold areas that are dealing with asthma. So here you go. You got a demographic. You see? And you chaperone.
So I have one more question. So because when I was like looking for like target audiences and
yes.
Getting to the niche of it, one thing I faced problem was like the limitation of accessing the data. Like for example, let's say I want to do a research saying that what are Gen Zs doing nowadays? Where to get these research data? Like how to get it?
Oh wow! So okay, you have to, because now we're talking very vague. You should anchor to your potential like challenge or technical problem or the chronic illness or whatever that you're capturing. So for example, let's have an anchor first. Let's say we're looking at diabetes. Okay, diabetes. There are two types, but let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is a rich market. Why? Because there are potential public domain data that you can look into, right? You can partner with institutions that are actually dealing with diabetes, for example. That is something that you can do because it's out there. But if it is too private, if it's too private, you cannot have access to, then you need to do adjacent research around it, which means literature. You got to read literature. You may not have access to the data, but then there are a lot of researchers dealing with that specific chronic illness. Read those things as a proxy. Do I make sense? You have a proxy research, not like direct research. You're doing proxy research. You read other people's work and you extract their nuggets and insights. You know that it's not that precise or that accurate, but at least you can satisfy 60% of the knowledge base that you need to design better. Okay?
Got it. Okay.
You got it? This
Yeah.
is a R&D, getting out of the hook of I don't have data, so I cannot innovate. No, you have things you can read, people you can talk to, and institutions you can partner to have an insight. If it's aggregated, good. If you need the raw data, then, by all means, find public data. You don't have public data access, no problem. You can even create that public data once you have the trust of the patients. Remember, again, back to what Raghu was talking about. Remember? Trust. They will give you the data later.
Got it. Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yes, Raghu?
Sangram. I have my email in the chat. So if you want
Yes,
to talk
please
later in the
connect.
talk, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. I will do that.
Technical person, non-technical person, please, by all means. And also, as I said earlier, I do have a bank of people. These are 7,000 students, guys, and it's not pure students. These are professionals, investors, and yada yada. And what I'm doing is mix matching, because I believe the more we connect people to whom they need, the better, right? For the sake of innovation. So if you are ready to demonstrate whatever you have, just send me an email, and then my team will facilitate later on. Okay? So just
Even if it's
as a little
a
bit of
prototype, just the MVP created out of like some
Yeah,
no-code
yeah.
tools, just to give
Yeah.
you, so it's fine.
No problem. If you are ready to demonstrate, just let me know. Then I will set up the session and invite all my past alumni. And also, I do have angel investors who write to me like, if you see something that is worth, investing on, then let me know. So
Which
that is
email
out there,
should we
okay?
send to?
Yes, Medverse.com or my assistant Anna. I think Anna had taken care of today.
Okay, so we will get some emails from you, so we know which email to send.
Yes. Okay, I'll send it. Okay, I'll write it here for you, Raghu. Here you go.
Yeah, keep it there.
There, it's right here. Here you go. This is my working
you.
email. Pleasure. So it's a little bit of an inspiration for you guys so that you don't slack or give up. I want you guys to do something about it. All good?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Pleasure. Meeting adjourned. Take care wherever you are, and hope to see you soon in another session. If you have a call invite from Anna from my team, please understand that it's confirmed. And as usual, since I'm from a different time zone, we'll just do it this way, okay? Have a good day. Take
Perfect.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Okay, take it. Cheers. Bye-bye.